Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Stephanie Stevens Show. I am Stephanie Stevens, and I will be your host for the next 45 minutes. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Thank you guys so much for reaching out with your stories. You have been wonderful. You have been very educational and inspiring. So I just want to say thank you to all of you that have taken part in my show and the shows to come. We have some great conversations coming up and a few fun ones as well. But today on my show, we are going to be talking, there's a lot of things trending in the LGBTQ community these days in a negative sense. So we have invited one of our performers on because she has a very clear idea of what maybe some of the issues are and how they should be addressed. Now, I'm going to say this in a sense of, because this is what I heard. I heard that she's very difficult, she's crazy, she's rude, she's reckless, she's hateful and vengeful. Now, I've known this entertainer a long time, and I know that she is a nice and kind person, but if you do cross her, she has a tendency to speak her mind, which we all should have. Now, so please welcome to my show today. This is the fabulous and the lovely, a great entertainer. I've worked with her for years and I love her. Please welcome Miss Donna Rama Versace. Hi, girl.
Hola.
How are you doing?
How you doing, Stephanie?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. It seems like you have a little bit of a delay, but that's okay. So,
I'm sorry.
How are you?
Not bad, Stephanie. It's a bit of a warm day, but you know, the heat makes me feel like, you know, we're in tropical places, not Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, you know, this week is Pride Week in Toronto, and there isn't much to do or see. Now, what are you actually doing? What are your plans for this weekend? Even though there's not really, you know, usually we would be doing a lot of shows and we'd be doing a lot of socializing.
yeah, and can I be honest? Like when I looked at the calendar today, I was like, oh, it's this weekend. And I was like, oh, it's here. Because usually there's the big brouhaha and big advertising and all this stuff like that. So this has become more of a personal pride for people, right? And we're doing more independent things, and we're doing things. It seems a little bit more self-celebratory. So myself, I guess I'm treating myself to a photo shoot and doing a video, and I have a video to send to New York, and that's about it though, because there's not much to do, like you said, right? And so anyways, it's like, yeah, I guess, you know, just being gay is pride enough. That's what we got going on.
Now, you know, I've known you for years. Now, when I first asked you to do the show, you were hesitant, and then you were like, okay, no, and then maybe, and then yes. And now finally we've come to some sort of an agreement, and you said, sure, I'll do your show, Stephanie. So I'm very happy that you accepted to do this for me. Now, when I first thought about the show, I had a couple of ideas of what I wanted the show to be about. But then when you said that you wanted the show to be about risque art. Now, can you explain to us what that means?
It just came from the kind of thing I've been seeing lately, or not even lately, things have becoming a little bit less, there's a lot less leeway for artists and things like that, and you have to be a bit more careful with what you're saying and doing, which is fine, because it's responsibility towards people, okay. But I found that artists are being a little bit more repressed these days, and that people aren't allowed to make statements and play with things like they used to, or that they should be doing, because our art form is becoming a kind of source where we're becoming more brand friendly, and we're losing our edge towards things that should be, an artist in the first place is somebody that challenges things and brings up topics that are a little bit uncomfortable or that are a little odd and things like that. I just find it's getting lost in the tide. And so I always felt like we should clarify, and we should be a little bit more substantial, you know what I mean? Towards what we're supposed to be doing and what we're not really doing and what's going on, you know?
Now, you know, in the last few years, and you know, as far as me, my comedy was always risque, outrageous, and it wasn't just rude and just to pick at people and pick on people. It was just saying stuff that people were afraid to say, but that is actually funny.
Oh,
Now,
it is.
and, you know, I got fired from one of the bars downtown because I wouldn't change the way I wanted to do the show. So when he called me in the office, he says, "We love you here, but we're getting a lot of calls that say that you are racist, sexist, feminist." And I'm gonna be honest, we ended up, a few of us in the bar, ended up at the Tribunal for Human Rights because
Wow.
of something that was happening in the bar. And they
Right.
they they mentioned me in the deposition because I was one of the performers. And I thought, out of all the performers, why would this person mention me? But anyway, it just goes to show you that things are very sensitive these days with artists and performers. I even noticed with this, with some of the most popular and celebrity comedians. They're now saying that they're being censored from saying certain things, and people are, you know, these, we have to be very sensitive. So people are a lot more sensitive than what we really think, I guess. But
Okay.
I think that in all fairness, an artist should, if there's a platform for them to portray their art, there should be something on the billboard or something in the marketing so people can make the decisions for themselves whether or not they want to come and visit this show. This
Right.
person should not lose their job or lose their livelihood or their profession or career because of jokes.
Oh, I know. I
Now,
completely. Yeah.
Now, you know, in the last few years, like I said before, I watched you do a lot of things that were just amazing. A lot of people thought a lot of it was risque, but coming from a comedian's point of view and a real artist, people that like to see people push boundaries and push buttons, I saw you do some of the most amazing stuff, but got the most flack from. How did you
Yeah.
deal with that?
Well, I kind of felt very secure in what I was doing, so it didn't affect me personally. You know, I felt a little bit of pressure because I felt I had to explain myself, and then I also felt like I had to explain to people that when you're in a medium and you're doing something that's artistic or you're doing something that's risque, it's like I felt like that kind of goes without saying. That's what the medium is, and that uh, you know, if we're going to start diluting things and we're going to be sensitive and very careful towards everything, then you're not going to be seeing much or hearing much that takes you away or challenges your mind. Because if we're all going to be very careful, if we're all going to be very sensitive and stuff like that, then we might as well not do it at all. And
Mhm.
I think that's bizarre. And I think that there's a lot of release that comes when something is presented to the masses or to crowds and to people. Because I mean, like we're talking, say, in 1970, when you had movies coming out and music coming out, and then a film comes out like The Exorcist, and
Mhm.
something like that just turns everything on its head. It presents something so horrifying yet so fascinating, and I think that's what art should be. I think that you need to shake things up and turn things around and throw it on its head and present things that are bizarre that get you thinking, because normality is boredom, and boredom is not entertaining. And that's
Mhm.
what I feel about it. It didn't affect me in the way that I cared what people were saying about me, because I just don't. But I do care about what people were thinking. Do you know if that makes sense to
Mhm.
themselves? Yeah, that kind of, I was concerned in a way.
You know, I hate when people's freedoms and liberties are pranced upon or bounced upon or trying to silence you. We have freedoms and liberties for a reason. We live in democracy for a reason. And
Yeah.
freedom of speech is something each and every person on this planet has,
Yeah.
or we hope they would have. Some countries might not have as much freedom as we have. Now, as you know, like I said, is many times our own communities are our worst enemies.
Yeah.
They laugh at our jokes and they love us, but they go home for, I'm not going to even say for good reasons. They go home and they get on the phone and they call the bar, or they spread these malicious lies about you in the community and this and
Yeah.
that. And you know, I have been through a lot of that.
Me too.
And
Oh yeah. Me
you
too.
as well. And we've seen it, and not just have we heard it, we've seen it. We've seen them. They're just so bold in this community that they act really out. Because you know why? Nobody ever calls them out on it. And now that you are doing that, they're shocked. They
They're
shouldn't be
shocked.
shocked.
Yeah.
They're shocked because you're calling them out on it now, and you're naming them, which is a good thing. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to say the truth.
Yeah. And sometimes you've just had about enough
And
because
that's true.
like if they're crossing the line and they're treading on you and these people are shutting your mouth and they're and the other thing is if some person's going to be kind of silencing you and stuff like that, the people that usually are 10 times worse than the fantasy that you created with your prop or with your with your horrible little joke or something like that. It's this invasiveness and this kind of taking of the voice and
Mhm.
the smothering of the art and these kind of things that made me go, well then what would you like me to do? You know what I mean? Like I don't want to sit there like Doris Day and then appease everybody, which is easy to do, right? But
Mhm.
you know if we're gonna think and do things like that, we would never have artists like Frida Kahlo who like were painting herself mutilated, because that was the true story of her life. And because of that, of that thought pattern and the way she presented herself and the things that she did, a lot of people related to it. And so the idea is that we're trying to humanize things that and cast light on things that people don't want to, are uncomfortable doing yet and stuff like that, or they think are personal, but they shouldn't be, because we need to break free, and we need to talk about things, and we need to also express things that aren't always pleasant and aren't always things that you should be saying and doing, but they're real. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
real. And what's missing is reality sometimes, you
Mhm.
know? And it's bizarre. There's just so many ways to look at it, Stephanie. You know what I mean? But if
Mhm.
SNL and Mad TV can do their parodies and their pun, then you should get off the back of your own community and stuff like that, because I don't see how I'm any different than that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you know what
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. You know what I like now, and I hope that it happens, is that our community is in such a bad state.
Independently.
It was in a really bad state before all of this, with the
Yeah.
gossip, the innuendos, the revenge, the foolishness, the nastiness to extreme.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe this pandemic and these protests will have some small changing of the guard, if you know what I mean, which
Maybe.
we need very badly.
Yeah. I don't think we should be shadowed and ghosted by authority figures, because uh, when we are doing our jobs and we're artists and things like that, that we are here not to exactly, adhere to a message or a way of thinking and doing things. Like you're a very individual person, I'm a very individual person. But people seem to think that even like just like being part of a community, people think they have ownership of you just because you're part of a community. I've been approached many times with, as a member of the community. And I'm like, no, you can stop right there, because that's already invasive and a
Mhm.
bizarre way to approach someone. Like you have the right, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Step into my life or to challenge or question me just because, you know what I mean? We're part
Mhm.
of a community. If we're going to use the word community also, then we have to start acting like one. Okay?
Mhm.
Because there's more negativity going around, and a lot of like objectifying and analyzing of things that shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like a community is something that we all build each other up. We're happy to know each other. We look for solutions. We don't focus on problems and things like that. And I got sick and tired of being attacked by people and going online when, you know, I'm out getting Baskin Robbins ice cream and I come home and apparently I did this and I did this and I did this and I didn't. You know what I mean? And so I don't know what this attitude is going around, but there's some sort of like cult mentality, and it's not a community if we're not being respectable and responsible for each other. Also, if people want respect, and you have to show that you are respectful, because I usually treat people the way they treat me, usually. You know what I mean?
As you know, the drag community for a long time was stagnant. It was very stagnant. And then we started infusing different things, different cultures. We started introducing different events, which lots of events, you know, I put on, and things that I generally cared about. And it wasn't really just about making money. It was really more about making a voice, because if you made the voice heard loud enough, you would make the money easily.
Yeah.
Now, as you know, that the bar, I'm going to just say it the way it is, the bar owners did a lot of harm to our community. The bar managers, not the bar owners, because the owners are somebody else that just collects the money in the straight areas. But
right.
The bar managers did a lot of harm in this community with the false umbrella of acting like they were doing really good things.
Right. Like treating people like shit and then putting out a box that you throw toys in, and they think that they're charitable people.
Mm-hmm. Now,
no.
Yeah. Now, you know, we don't want to just say it, you know, right out who the people are. We know who they are. And I never said anything for a long time, because, you know, I got beat up in the community a long time, and you got beat up in the community. And one thing I just never did, I never stood up to a lot of them when I should have.
Right.
Because I was just trying to do the right thing. And they saw this person thinks they're this and this and this. And they didn't realize it. I was just a person in the community, just doing what I do, trying to make a living and trying to make a difference. And they did everything possible to stop artists like you, me, and a lot of the other minorities in our community.
Right.
Now, because I was in it, I could see it.
Yeah.
This is why I didn't work as much as I probably should have been working.
Oh,
I wasn't the yes man or the yes woman. I wasn't that kind of person. Now, I remember you telling me about an incident when I did a show with you one time with this certain performer that actually, I couldn't believe it. I was so hurt when this person said that I stole their drink tickets.
Oh, I know.
That was one of the most hurtful things, because I couldn't believe it. I thought, I've never worked with this person, and she's now gone and complained to the managers and said, and named me right out.
Oh, well, that's what happens when you know, you bring in the wrong person, and then you're all of a sudden you're in a trap, because this person, you can't be trusted, and they're out there to hurt you, and they're strictly out for themselves. And, you know, taking no responsibility, and a very thankless person too, after all the things you do for someone. How these people treat people like that after you give them opportunities. It's almost like you let them into your house and then they just trample in with their shoes and kick your dog. But I do remember that incident and the person, and the ironic thing is she found her drink tickets later on in her bag, right? And I'm sure you didn't get an apology for it, did you?
No, I didn't get no apology, nothing. I was still, to this day, I was thinking, I can't, if I ever see her, I'm going to curse her a stank. But I figured, no, I won't have to do that.
Karma knocked her lights out, you know what I mean?
Knocked them right out. So I didn't have to do nothing. Like a lot of, you know what another good thing is karma now is getting a lot of them ones who thought they were divas now. I see them hustling on the grass, hustling on the corner, because there's no money. It's like, You know what? If you would have just been doing the right thing back in the day,
Mm.
protecting each other, not
Protect.
working for free, a lot of these queens were working for free
Oh
or for
yeah.
just drink tickets. Can you believe that?
I believe it because they're told that they have to earn their stripes, quote unquote, first,
Hmm.
which is hilarious because I think when you first start out in drag, that's when it's most expensive, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
And a lot of bars do these contests that I find um, uh, exploitive because they're so eager to be in drag and to do drag that they're like, we're doing a contest, and you have to show up 5 times and then you meet the finals and then you get a ticket for a boat cruise or something.
Hmm.
That's not taking care and being responsible to people. It's exploitive. And
Hmm.
because drag costs money, uh, your living expenses, things like that. And so, I think people are just, because there's such a plethora of people that want to do it for free, that the people that should be getting paid and stuff, they get downsized, and it just adds a whole thing in there. A very greedy thing to do, though.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Now,
very greedy.
now
Yeah.
the reason I mention that is because now a lot of the girls in the U.S. are chastising. I've been seeing this trending a lot lately in the last few days, really a lot more. A lot of the girls were doing free shows, meaning that they were just working for tips and drink tickets. And you
Oh,
would think even some of the main top headliners in the States were saying that some of the main queens were doing shows for tips and drinks, and they were trying to put a stop to that. You
yes.
do not be working for free. Understand what you're worth. Now,
Right. Yeah.
now, we are now having these protests with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Now, in a few years ago, we had this issue in the community that you brought a lot of attention to, with one of the performers in blackface. Now, that seemed to affect you a lot. So, can you just tell us a little bit about this?
yeah. Well, what that means to me is when someone's trying to eradicate you and when someone's trying to come at you and do things to you, and I think it's your responsibility, and not in a vengeful way, but you have to show that that person has no right to open their mouth because they're absolutely out of line with how they treat themselves and everyone around them. And so, well, we have to talk about back in the day when we used to do Queens on Queens and stuff like that. And we used to have, like, Chris Edwards would paint herself like a white person. And then she would put on a nose and be Barbara Streisand and stuff like that. And now it really is like the attitude and the intention of somebody when they do something. You know what I mean? For me, when I'm talking about someone who's doing something like that and they're acting like that, to me, it's like saying, oh, so you don't have a problem with, you know what I mean? But you will sit there and make believe and creatively come up with some horrible plot and plan to destroy someone's life, but you don't object to this. You know what I mean? There's a certain kind of bias that goes around like that. And I kind of like to expose that kind of thing because I think that it's almost pathetic. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like that one thing's okay for someone else, but it isn't for someone else because you're not in their friends group and stuff like that. So you have this kind of these biased cliques that do things like that. Yeah, and it's very
You know,
unfortunate.
I found it rather strange that this person did blackface in the bar and the manager didn't take offense to it right away and
Right.
not allow it on their stage to have a voice, knowing that they knew that this would create controversy.
Yeah, I think it yeah. This happened around the time when like I think that she was kind of following my lead because I had done a number like with explosives on me and this
Mhm.
kind of thing, and it was like a statement I was making about 9/11 and the way
Mhm.
that people were being treated because when 9/11 happened, I was working in Vancouver and my bosses were from Afghanistan, and then I had to kind of manage the store because they couldn't be in the store. and I saw the racism happening. And so I got a real good thing about it. And I think my humor helped us along, like when we were there and talking about it and stuff like that, uh, I was like, for me, I was making statements about the way people were saying things and seeing things, kind of like Spy Based Spy. Like it was almost a cartoon, the way all of a sudden, here are the bad guys, like that. And I always felt like, I wanted to say something about it because I saw the way people were characterizing people and putting them into boxes, and they never really shook it. You know what I mean? Like there's a stereotype about it. And we don't even know if that occurred, what happened at 9/11. You know what I mean? Like it's always some funky business, you know?
Oh, go ahead.
No.
It's funny how when you think about racism and stuff, I never did the right thing, or I never blatantly used racist jokes ever.
Right.
Now, of course, you hint with just saying this or this, but I never blatantly went out to hurt someone. And for us in this community, our livelihood was the bars. The bars' livelihood were the queens. And then they started taking an approach of, okay, oh, I'm sorry, we're community now. Because they're established now. But when you weren't established, you didn't care what we said.
Right. Well, yeah.
So,
But I mean, the job of a comedian isn't to sit there and compliment you on how nice, you ironed your shirt and how it's holding up in the bar. You know what I mean? Like you're just supposed to tear people up and have fun with it. And if they say if you can't take a joke, then out of here. Like because we all have to laugh at each other. That's probably the only thing that makes us all tolerate each other too, is a little bit of humor sometimes, isn't it?
Now, what do you
there's
think?
Nothing wrong with having fun with each other. There's nothing wrong with it at all.
What do you think is happening in the community in a sense? Where do you see this place in 5 years? What do you think is happening? Because a lot of bad things have happened. What do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years, if there's any community left?
Ooh, it's funny because it's kind of unpredictable, and it's strange that, like, I don't know how and why everything just started disappearing, and I started noticing it more and more and more and more. And I think that there's, like, in my opinion, and of course I'm not a realtor and a bar owner, but I would definitely try to propose something where this is like, we're going to have to need rent control and a reason to keep our community a gay community where there's not too much people coming in that are just kind of diluting it. And so, like Kensington Market, for example, they were very specific, and they stopped Walmart and things like that from coming into the community because they realized that if they allowed those things to happen, that there wouldn't be a Kensington Market, and then everything would just start becoming, whatever the word is.
Commercialized.
Yeah, right. And but our community it's supposed to be a gay community, if I'm correct. And so, why aren't we keeping it one? And why aren't we making sure that we have those bars and that we have these places to go and these stuff like that? Like, by keeping your rent up at $30,000, you're making it very difficult for a gay run business or a gay business to exist and succeed. But it doesn't hurt a Starbucks or McDonald's from taking over that building and becoming a franchise. So I would definitely have a word, and we should have, this should be a discussion, a serious discussion before you say, like, in 5 years we're not going to have anything there but McDonald's, and we're going to have banks and stuff like that because they're the ones who have the money. You know what I mean? But that's not what the principle should be.
Well, Donald Rowley, in all fairness, I'm just going to say this, and this is not out of hate or revenge or just negativity, but some of these places, some of these bars, these gay bars need to close.
Yeah.
They need
a bad influence on people and situations.
And I don't have no remorse for if they don't open back up, because some of them don't. need to open back up. Now,
No.
as far as I've watched in the States now, a lot of the girls are warning other girls that they need to get a job because just in case if a lot of the bars don't open up, what do you think the girls are going to do? What are you going to do?
Um, well, thankfully, for me personally, no, but for me personally, it's funny because I accidentally got into drag, right? I was promoting for bars and clubs like that. I was a club kid. And I was doing set designs and things like that. And I've always ended up back there doing using my talents for costumes and props and things like that. And the performance aspect of everything was a real treat for me. And
Mhm.
I would definitely suggest, and I've said this all along, is that you should always establish your own business. You always should establish that you shouldn't have to rely on people and that you should always look for an inventive way to keep yourself going personally. And like, I mean, God put this in your heart for a reason, you know what I mean? And you
Mhm.
should appreciate it and you should honor it. And I don't think that if you're not working at a bar, that should be the end of anything. I think it should be nothing but more than a challenge and a
Mhm.
way to be an entrepreneur. And
Now, I want to say this is what do you think is happening now? To be just be fair and honest, what do you think is happening with the queens now? Because a lot of them, the performers and everything, they hide behind closed doors. And a lot of them aren't very good socially without the mask.
right,
So now for me, I know a lot of them are suffering behind doors.
probably.
And
And in many ways, right? In many ways.
mhm.
Yeah.
And for the even some of the people in the community that I saw that you had some words for,
Haha.
that a lot of them, like you said, maybe have some mental issues, or they're just not facing reality, or they just are just negative and mean just
Yeah,
because
sure.
they can and because nobody calls them out on it.
No.
Now, what do you think should happen for the community now? What direction do you think we should go into?
I think people don't think as heavy, far and deep with foresight, and that I think they only hope things go back to the way they were. And so I think that's what they'll work towards. But I don't think that that's going to be a reality because a lot of these clubs and these nightclubs and things like that are absolutely not allowed to open until a vaccine comes along because you
Mhm.
can't be in a space with perspiration and breathing and all this body contact and all these things happening. So there's all these precautions and all these things now, which is throwing everyone for a loop, I'm sure. Um, do you think people are going to learn from this? I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. Like,
Okay,
mm,
let's talk about just a couple of more things. I have some really, I'm leading up to something that, because I know if I say it, move too fast, the emotion will come out of you and the story will go this way. Now,
no,
a lot of the performers in the community, I think, have been on the stage too long
sometimes.
for the community to make change because change brings more money and more success to every community
Okay.
in some sense. Now, when you look at corporations like TD, for example, I love them. I've been with them 30 years. They take care of my couple of tokens and everything. But they have started to dominate the entire community
Yeah.
in so much of a sense is that they make the rules now for Pride. Pride can make no rules or say nothing without TD.
Yeah, I heard something.
Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
that is an issue in itself.
No kidding.
Now, another thing I noticed, an issue, is I saw it happen. One night I came into one of these popular bars that I worked in for a long time, and I saw one of the performers on many occasions,
Oh,
stealing other entertainers' ideas and trying to call it their own.
right.
And yet, getting top dollar for
Ah,
stolen ideas, giving
yeah.
these entertainers no credit for their work or where they got it from, and yet the community thinks they are top dog when you see 90% of the stuff they've ever done is stolen.
Yeah, exactly. And 60% of it, it's mine. I've I've walked into bars where I don't care, heroin marks, like for example, and I'm like, sending me an email saying, "Oh, I'm doing this in my mix," and I read this paper and it's my mix, and it's like to the T at 3:33 a phone call comes in. At 3:42 it's Madonna saying God, and I'm like, why are you ripping me off? And there's this disrespect that comes from especially younger artists that think that they can, because they are younger, or that they think that they're on their way up, that they have this all about Eve mentality. I'm going to tear her down, and then I'm going to come out with my big mink coat and I'm the new you. And it's like, get an identity and get your own ideas. And if you want to be a cheap imitation of someone, it's always going to be, like you won't ever have the respect. And so, I mean, when I started off, though, I was very influenced by Barbie, and I loved her fruit hat and I recreated that look. But I try to make it my own. And I always said that Jason Ride was an influence to me. I don't walk around crapping on people and then walking around dressed like them. I think that
Mhm.
is just like disrespectful, and it's just, a dirty way to be. And people should always like treat that as an offense, that it's offensive.
Now, another thing that I found rather quite me, I did a little bit of my homework, but I'm one, I like walking around and observing so I can see for myself. Now, here we were today, I saw this performer being interviewed by this television station, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, why are they interviewing this person? If the young, up and coming performers and queens have this great platform called RuPaul's Drag Race, which they all worship,
Right.
where are their voices? Number one. Number
Yes.
two, the one person that was on RuPaul's Drag Race and from Toronto and was the runner up
Right.
had no voice for Pride.
Okay.
So it shocked me that the radio station is so out of tune and so used to being comfortable with familiarity
Right.
that they would use this person instead of using a person that would have a bigger voice. Is it because you
Right.
think they would cost more to bring this other person on who has been on television, but who would have a more powerful and impact on our community, mainly at this time of year during Pride?
Right. Well, the thing about a lot of stations and a lot about a newscast and things like that is they're not exactly going to grab somebody because they want to hear anything political or alarming from anyone. So when they snatch a drag queen, or they ask somebody, they usually, call a bar and go, "Who do you have?" And they're like, "Well, Priyanka," or someone who's
Mhm.
friendly, and who's someone who is fun and bouncy and those kind of things. So when we're dealing with external media and stuff like that, they don't want to provoke and disturb their viewership. So they usually get somebody who's a tame and fun and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
I think that, like what you're saying, is that voices are a bit lost, and that
Mhm.
um, that all comes down to if what people are permitting us to say and do sometimes, right?
The reason I say this is because I'm trying to let you understand that I hear and I see that our voices are being muted
They are. Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
From even our own, the customers in the bars, our own fans,
Right.
You can never, for some reason, Toronto can't seem to get in front of the game because look, I'm gonna bring this up again because it's just I couldn't stop laughing. The
Oh,
RuPaul drag race thing, they're having Canada's first drag race. You see very little marketing for that. You see very little voices for that. It's almost like nobody cares.
I wonder. Well, I think it's embarrassing that Canada and Toronto took that long to come up with something and piggybacked on an American idea. And I think that's pathetic. And that after 40 years of drag in Canada, that we had to wait for an American idea to come in. And
I said this in one of my conversations with one of the girls. I said, you know what? I heard one of the popular performers between this is I want the world to know. I heard this queen clear as a bell because I'm an American.
yeah.
She talked so bad about me.
Oh,
She was letting me have it as an American. But
oh,
then I said in my conversation, I said, it's strange how these Canadian queens talk so bad about me being an American, but yet it was an American who gave them their real opportunity.
right. And how
With
they use
RuPaul Drag
ageism.
Race. And how is it, why is it that it's an American and Canadian thing? But now you got this, you're not saying anything about this RuPaul and all of this. RuPaul's an American who lives in Los Angeles or New York and could care less really about Canada.
No, probably
But
doesn't give a shit.
yeah, but yet you talk so bad about Americans.
Right.
I
Uh,
I understand the president and all that foolishness and all that, but I'm talking about us, our lives, what
right.
concerns us with the drag and things like that. And I found it rather odd that this performer was talking so negative to make sure I heard she was talking about Americans.
Why? Because I'm sorry, but if American drag and stuff like that, and American people who are doing drag and stuff like that are so finely established and so in control and so professional and so strong that we are imitating them. So I really don't understand why anybody would badmouth anything that was American. And of course, what you said about the president is such a trend now to just shit on America, right? But
Mhm.
I mean, the man, doesn't represent much. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? Like this
I mean,
guy.
we're all open to our opinions about everyone, but for
Right.
you to see this great opportunity that this person is giving you, but yet your disdain for American is so outweighing the opportunity for you to get rich and get famous and get everything that you want, that you're so blinded by hate of this this performer. But
Right.
yet nobody, and we know this, nobody is going to line up around the block to see no Canadian queen and pay 25, 30, and $100 to see none of these queens here. And
Well,
you know that.
not unless they're allowed to do what they have to do, and
Mm-hmm.
they stop oppressing everybody. Because people, Canadian or not, you know what I mean? If that artist does something that's spectacular and does something so groundbreaking and stuff like that, they should be first of all allowed to do it. Like people aren't letting artists breathe anymore, and everyone has an opinion when there should be silence and they should be listening. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
What really made me mad more about it was when this person first came to Toronto, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. They tried to hook up with me,
Oh,
and we used to hang out at Chaps, and I put her in drag for talent night at Chaps. I'm not going to say who she is, but
yeah.
she's almost stolen all of the I and the from you know who, me. And I never said anything
No.
because I'm her mother. I'm her
Okay.
mother. I never said nothing. I never degraded her. I never said you stole this from me or this and this and this. I never, because to me, I love her. She was funny. But when
Yeah.
she started stabbing me in the back for a job,
Right.
I thought you can have the job, but everything you're doing, you know, you stole it from me. And that's
Oh,
okay. Nobody else might not know it, but I know it.
yeah. What is the term for that? Where it's like someone's so hell bent on becoming famous or something that they have lost their manners or they have lost their soul. You know what I mean?
They've lost their own identity.
It's it's
They,
it's it's called selling your soul, you know? Like doing dirty, rotten things to people to get somewhere and to put other
Mhm.
people down like that, you know? We have
So
a lot of problems like that. Like it's unprofessional, you know? Yeah, I
now,
would disown that daughter of yours. That's not your daughter.
mm-hmm,
That's your evil cousin.
mm-hmm.
Oh,
But we're
bitch.
not going to say who she is. She's a very opinionated woman, and
Oh,
I'm kind of glad I don't have nothing to do with her either. But like I said, is I want to, you know, I know it takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery for you to be have been contained in this show today. I can see the restraint, and I'm glad because we already know that they deserve everything. I read everything you ever wrote about the community and all the stuff. These people deserve everything you said about them because sometimes you just have to call people out when they're just too much.
just too much when people are crossing the line, and especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're
Yeah.
going when you're going to work and then everything is going on isn't about work.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is just like a criminal activity. And you see, I'll assure you something is that and I could say this when not one motherfucker can disagree with me, is I've never inside a workplace been a problem to somebody else. I've always created jobs for people. All right. I've always given things, costumes, music, and helped and tried to do things for people. And usually, you know, that kind of nature, you seem to resent it afterwards because you've done things for people that took it for granted or that took advantage of you, you know? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know, Stephanie. I
Well,
don't
you
think
know,
I don't want to become a cold, callous person, and I still want to have my soul, but I don't want to be taken advantage of, you know?
mhm.
So who's taking care of these workplaces? And it's not the management, you know what I mean? Because they're allowing horrible people to say and do horrible things to people, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Well, you know, I'm kind of glad that a lot of this pandemic thing happened for a lot of reasons. The protests are happening because it's bringing a lot of attention to maybe a lot of things that we have been missing for a long time. And the pandemic thing is probably something that we have been missing as well.
Yeah.
It was probably already here from when they first started with SARS and the bird
Yeah.
flu, mad cow disease. These things have been slowly creeping up on us. And so now with the pandemic and now the protests, maybe this is a time to sort of not just clear the air, but just sort of get people's attention that
Yeah.
sometimes people are too comfortable with treating people and get nasty and getting away with it for far too long. And they're just thinking that it's just a part of the way it is.
It,
And it's another good thing about this is that I'm glad you had the courage and you stood up to a lot of them. And I love it that you're shaking them up. And you keep doing that because they need this. Because
it's all,
it will hopefully clear the way for people that have good intentions for our community, good intentions for artists who deserve to have a voice and be heard. When people are not going to like everything that we do,
no.
but we have liberties
Yes. And
and we
integrity. Yeah.
and you know I'm glad that you're standing up for the way you feel. And I don't think, you know, I know you have a lot of issues with a lot of these performers and all this stuff. So do I.
Yeah.
But um sometimes you just have to grab the bull by the horns.
Right. Well, I've seen what's happened if you let somebody just do whatever they want to and they have no boundaries. Is that
Hmm.
they'll affect you or somebody else in such a way that it devastates things. And they don't feel good unless they're hurting somebody. And that's another disturbing thing to notice about some people. And they have no remorse or care and then no conscience because I think it's a sickness personally that if somebody will do anything to anybody and to get what they want to, I think that's just a sociopathic kind of thing, and that's disturbing. And that it's okay to speak up when those things happen, even if people are like, "You always talk about it," or "I don't want to hear it," and it's like, well, everyone has their voice when something discomforting happens to them, but they don't want to hear when anybody else is speaking. And that's just a bizarre, selfish way of being. So you have to say and do whatever you have to say. And I've made mistakes. I said things that are wrong, though. Like I've crossed the line and I've gone too far. But sometimes I did that because I was like, you absolutely showed me no regard, and so I can't have any for you either. You know what I mean? I guess it's called stooping. Like, I don't know what it is, but I don't like the fact that professional spaces have become something other than what they're supposed to be. Like, it's like, this is not your living room. You know what I mean? This is a workspace, and this line here is zigzagged and crossed and blurred now, and I think that's a horrible thing. I think it's terrible. Yeah.
I'm glad that you spoke your mind. We're going to wrap it up here shortly. I'm glad that you spoke your mind, and I have a very clear idea of what kind of person you are. I've worked with you for many years, and sometimes it's better to speak out. My mother used to tell me that all the time. We used to go to the grocery store. My brother and sister would run and grab everything and fill the cart all the way up, and I would be looking at something and wouldn't pick it up. And she used to sit me on her lap, and she used to tell me, "You better open up your mouth. They're walking out of the store with everything. And I see you looking at the stuff, but you're not saying you want it. When you want something, tell me you want something. Put it in the cart, just like them. Go after what you want and say what you want." So I'm glad that you're reaching out and you're telling them how you feel. And this is a good thing. Sometimes people just need to be told the truth.
Or to be made aware of the truth, Yeah.
And another good thing I like is the fact that you were honest and candid about making sure that what you were saying was heard. And that is another good thing. So I don't know what's going to happen with our community. I don't see any good signs. I'm thinking now you're going to see a lot of very angry people that are not going to be able to afford the lifestyle that some of these queens thought they were living.
Right.
And now the reality of no jobs, no money, no community, and they're really having to now rely on the government or programs or different charities and stuff to take care of themselves and live when they should have been living in these realities in the first place.
Oh, maybe.
And a lot of them were, but they were trying to act like they were this or that. And now the reality is hitting them. It's going to be very sad to see what happens to a lot of the performers, even the up and coming ones and the new ones who look forward to maybe trying to be a RuPaul Drag Race star or trying to be a performer in our community or just trying to be an entertainer in general. I'm sure the artist business, not with just the drag, but the entertainment field in Toronto with all the theaters, the dancers, these people are out of work and will be out of work for a long time.
Maybe.
So, I don't know. So what's your advice to our community from what you're seeing? Just give us a closing advice of what you think needs to happen.
Let's think about it. Okay, so what needs to happen is people need to look after each other and take care of each other. People need to open up and have more conversations. When one thing happens, I think, Steph, that it sometimes can be a good thing. I never ever found that when something came along, or that was like, oh, an obstacle or like that, I always looked at those things as challenges that you turn into a benefit for yourself. I would say that this is a good opportunity for the community not to just focus on, going to bars and just having a gossipy beer chugging lifestyle. I think that this is a good time for people to meet each other and be honest with each other. There's a lot of bleeding hearts in the world and in the community and stuff like that need to bond with other people. And so I hope that this turns into a more humane thing, because this is something that has brought people into a more human circumstance. So I think that we should start here, and that's where it should be. Start here.
Well, like you said, be more humane with each other. This is a time for healing and trying to fix some of the problems that have been going on far too long.
Yeah.
And make people accountable for those things. And hopefully the changing of the guard will come. I pray and hope, because sometimes change can be good.
Yeah.
And our community really needs that change really bad.
Yes. I completely agree with you. I don't think that there are these limitations and all of these things that people have come to grasp that they consider normal attitudes and these adapted personalities that will just go along with anything. I think that's a crime against themselves and everybody around them. Yeah, you're completely correct. Yeah.
So on that note, Donnorama, I'm going to say thank you so much, lady. You were amazing. You were very insightful. And I'm going to be honest, I think you're one of the best performers around. And I'm not saying that just because I know you, but I've watched you for years. Even when I wasn't performing, I would come to your shows and watch them because you're just a talent. And
you're hilarious.
Oh, thank you. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you. Try to go out and walk around or something this weekend just to see see what's going on, girl. So,
I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the show today, I had the incredible Donnorama. She was on to talk about a lot of the issues in our LGBT two-spirited pronoun community, about, things that were affecting the community, that was crippling the community in a sense. And hopefully we enlightened you a little bit on her concerns, my concerns, and hopefully we also came to some sort of a medium to where we understand that this is a time for change. This is a time for our voices to be heard. And this is a time for us just to come together and realize that we have made mistakes. And we need to have that conversation about fixing those mistakes. So on the show today, I want to just say thank you, lady.
Thanks, Stephanie.
And we will talk again. We will chat soon.
I hope so.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody out there in the Stephanie Stevens land. Over and out, people. Until next time, and happy Pride, everybody.
Pride.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.